think I'm probably clever enough. Steve Peterson's our guest, and Steve's with the Farm Bureau, of course. He's a farmer down by beautiful downtown Slifer. Our sponsor is Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481. Steve was on with us regularly a long time, but I guess we burned him out. Did we burn you out there, Steve?
Oh, not quite yet.
Not quite. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I certainly want to. Well, we need to talk about the conditions as we get this close to harvest, and believe it or not, we're getting closer to harvest all the time. It always flies by. And
it does.
Did you get an early start planting?
We planted, I would say, I guess mid-April, end April, which is traditionally when what I would call normal. It's hard to judge normal these days, but everything went in fine this year. You know, we had a nice dry spring. We have had sporadic. Some areas have had more rain than others. There's some areas right now here locally that are pretty dry, and it's a really critical time right now. The corn uses primarily with corn. The corn right now is using the most water in its entire life cycle because it's what it's doing right now. It's pollinating, and it's going to put 110% of its effort in creating that ear. That is the sole duty of that corn plant right now, and it uses the most water, uses the most nutrients. This is the prime deal. So this
is the time that happens.
This is the time.
So that would be what 60, 70 days into the growing cycle, or
we use GDUs, growing degree units, and that's a calculation. You take the high temp and the low temp, you add them together, you divide it in half, and then you subtract 50 off, and it comes up with a number. So, like if it was 86 is a high and 68 is a low, you do the math and you come out, roughly 26, 27 GDUs. And we keep kind of a running count as from the day we plant, and all the varieties, they have all the calculations. This happens at pollination, this is maturity. So, doing that math, if we kind of held this route right now, which it looks like we're going to be fairly warm, we would be reaching maturity probably early September, which is a little early, but
not real early, though.
Not real early. And when I say reach maturity, that's black layer, and then the corn's still 32% moisture, and then it dries down, and it usually half a point or whatever a day. So we would be harvesting probably end of September type time frame. So very, very much there, but we need the rains. And like I said, some areas are much, much, much drier. I believe we're still in a D1 drought area in this. In this region here.
Boy, the crops look beautiful from the highway. Yep. I know if you walk out in the field, it might be a different situation.
Yep. And some areas, you can go just there's pockets within miles that it changes drastically. It's it's kind of a deal. You can get a bunch of farmers together, and they've all got good stories and bad stories, and that's in the markets right now. They can't get a handle. That's like yesterday we've seen a big loss. Today we've seen a lot of movement in the markets. They can't get a handle of really how good a crop we have or don't have, because really no one has an idea yet. So every little bit of news seems to throw gas on the fire or put the fire out.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's very challenging, but it would definitely be nice to. I think there's maybe some small chances of rain early next week. Those are going to be critical. If we miss out on some of those rains, I think we're going to be peeling some yield back every hit we take from here on out. So it's beans. They kind of like a little drier weather, but we will need to see some timely rains in August when they're filling their pods. That's kind of the beans time, and that'll make or break the bean crop. So we got a little bit of time yet on that, but the corn right now we're in a critical stage.
Yeah. Well, the old farmers, way before we were into computers, always wanted to say we needed a hot July and a wet August, but it seems like it never turns out that way.
No, it's and if you go out in the countryside right now, you'll see a lot of sprayer activity in the fields. The cornfields will be these really tall sprayers, the ground rigs, and then you'll see a lot of airplanes. I think out of the Rockwell City Airport, I think they were flying 7 crop dusters out of there the other day. So
Really?
they're really, and what they're doing is they're applying a fungicide, and that's kind of it's not new, but it's getting more widely adapted. There's fungicides have a lot of different uses anymore. We used to kind of treat them after we seen the disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've kind of figured out that, well, once you see it, usually it's too late. So you try to be a little preventative. And different weather conditions can trigger different types of diseases. So you're seeing a lot of preventative applications right now of that stuff. And with the dollar, a corn crop value right now, it's a high value crop. So you're wanting to maximize everything you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then in next week, 2 weeks, we'll probably start seeing some applications going on in soybeans also.
I didn't hear what Murley said the corn closed at today. I was cussing out.
It was all over the place. It was way up, and then it went back almost to nothing, and then I think it did. I think I seen it. Both of them were up about 15 cents. So
is that right?
But they were all over the place today.
Okay.
Yeah, just crazy markets.
Why does that happen?
Every little bit of news and
everybody jumps. Huh?
There's there's a lot of speculation of coronavirus coming back up worldwide and closing down markets, and then that gets people spooked, and then it so there's just a lot of dynamics. We're in the ag market right now. We've patiently waiting to see what they do. The refinery waivers, which I thought we had that put to bed, the courts ruled again, and so now that's back all in limbo again.
I was gonna say, what happened there?
After everyone was on board, and I thought in the court, one particular court ruled that they were illegal, and the EPA was on board with it, and it was getting implemented, and then out of left field, Supreme Court changed that ruling. So
the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yep, we're back to square one.
So will this require federal legislation?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe Senator Grassley has reintroduced basically some language to clear it up, and I do believe there's some bipartisan support for this to clarify the desire of Congress to implement this. But as the rule was written, the lower court, and the Supreme Court come out with different opinions, and of course the Supreme Court won. So
yeah, of course they always do.
Yeah. So, but it's based on how they interpret the language and the spirit that was written in the law. So hopefully we can see. It's always these days in Washington, you don't know what you're going to get. So hopefully they can work together and do something on that.
Well, again, you and I were talking about Mike a little bit. It's a crazy world. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old, which I certainly am, but there's always something coming out of deep left field or right field or just landing on top of you. And there doesn't, the Supreme Court decision, I have no idea what prompted the justices. And I went in and looked at their decision, and I'm not a lawyer, but I read the decision, and it's that dull legal language, but I really wanted to understand what they had to say, and I still don't know what the hell they had to say.
Yeah. And another big issue coming up is the waters of the U.S., which was another item that we believed was kind of settled, and we were able to move forward. And now all of a sudden we're going to open that can of worms again and have some discussions. Everything I've heard, they say they're going to work with all parties involved. Before it was I felt very exaggerated on what they were declaring.
Waters of the world, yeah. The water that should be under federal jurisdiction.
A mud puddle in my driveway is would technically fall under their jurisdiction, and that's probably a little, overreaching of what we need to do.
There's been, to my mind, some good foreshadowing for us in regard to waters of the USA. Now, the Dreamers Act, and I'm not going to talk about the Dreamers Act, but the Dreamers Act was ruled by at least one judge as unconstitutional presidential overreach.
Sure.
President Obama just created the Dreamers Act and said these people could now stay in the country legally. Mm-hmm. Well, the courts have said so far, no, that's not the way we do things in this country. The president just can't do that.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will now tell us that no, the president, in this case Biden, can't just reestablish this Waters of the USA or Waters of the World Act or whatever it is. Yeah. At least I hope that's the case. I hope the court sees that as constitutional or executive branch overreach, because it is.
It's what makes it tough is, we kind of get going in a direction, and it seems like, we have enough people that want to work together to a common good, but when they get tugging politically on some of these issues, it gets a little out in the weeds. And,
it does.
And, so right now there's some uncertainty with there. And then there's also, another issue that we're cautiously looking at is some of the taxation and terms like stepped up basis and some of the inheritance taxes and stuff like that, because a lot of times farms, they're kind of unique entities that they can gain a lot of value and have a lot of monetary, but the person owning them really doesn't ever realize that. And it gets passed on. Well, then it just gets another layer of the onion peeled off every generation, and there really wasn't a lot changing. And it makes it very hard to, under certain circumstances, pass some of these farms. My position on Farm Bureau, I'm a part of a group with Texas A&M, and I represent a small farm. And what we do is we go in and run some numbers on our model farm, and we get together once or twice a year and run our real numbers. And Texas A&M uses these model farms, and I think there's around 700 of them in the country, and they use those model farms as models to run tax scenarios or any legislative priorities that the government might have, and see how it works on farms. And I believe a lot of these tax proposals, there was only 2 farms out of the 700 that made it through.
Oh, you're kidding.
It was decimating that some of the impact that these things would have. So it's an interesting process and concept to do, but Texas A&M, Iowa State University works on these projects together, and they use, real farmers' data and whatnot. So very, very interesting concepts and very eye-opening when you see it. So that's what then a lot of the legislators will use as information and data to craft different directions in taxes and whatnot. So, it's we're cautiously watching a lot of that direction too. Here in Iowa, Governor Reynolds, they're kind of a phase out of inheritance tax. It didn't really amount to a whole lot here in the state, but I think it's a good thing. It's a good direction to move. It's just another conversation, another wrinkle in the whole agricultural footprint right now.
Well, agriculture has its enemies.
It does. It does.
We haven't even talked environmentalists yet, but we probably will have to. But it's good you're on the air fighting back.
Yeah. The water, that's always water quality is a huge deal. Currently, we're investing a lot of dollars more. They've really ramped up the investment and the private partnerships that have formed. I listened to some of the news, I guess, and I kind of wonder how they can have some of these arguments right now, because they talk about the poor water quality in the river and how it's the farmer's fault. Well, there's no water leaving my farm. Webster County, I'm in the Hardin Creek, and it goes right through my farm. There is no discharge out of Hardin Creek, out of our ground. Right now, I believe a lot of what they're seeing is the lack of water. But the lack of water, you really can't use the argument it's the farm's polluting because there's no water coming off of our farms. It's we need volumes of water to, I think, dilute some of this stuff, and some of these nitrates. It's a little far-fetched to think they all come from agriculture. A lot of nitrates are naturally occurring too, and when you do not have the volume of water to dilute them, there can be some problems. But yet, if you look at the data of the water monitoring stations, there's no nitrate stations in the Raccoon or the Des Moines River that's ever been in a danger zone almost in the last 2 years.
Why is that, do you suppose?
Those numbers look good to me.
Well, the numbers look good. I mean, is there
Yeah.
a specific reason for that? Or
There's a lot of practices that have been going on. I mean, we're constantly refining.
so,
things.
wait, are you telling me that the practices put in place by the Farm Bureau, that environmentalists,
Not just Farm Bureau. There's a lot of organizations.
yeah, okay, I shouldn't have said it that way. But ag groups have responded
Sure.
to concerns about the environment.
Mhm.
Environmentalists will always say it's not enough, or the world is going to fall in the hole, or something. But do you believe that these practices implemented by agricultural groups are working? And
Yes.
we can point to something like you just illustrated
Yes.
and say, yeah, this is working. We can-
Definitely, I think we're going in the right direction. Is it fast enough for some people? No.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not. I think if just like politics, in my view, we get a lot more done if we work together instead of one side yelling at the other side and have a winner and a loser. I don't like to hear moratoriums, and I don't like to hear, a lot of this drastic language. There's a lot of good things going on, and I think we should build on those.
Mhm.
I think we both have a common goal,
Mhm.
the adversaries on both sides of the fence, but I don't agree with some of the drastic rhetoric that goes on in a lot of the news and stuff like that. I think we need to identify, what's working and what's not. There's also things that probably aren't working or aren't as beneficial.
But Steve, if it weren't for drastic and dramatic language, what would I do for a living?
Well,
You know what I'm saying.
sure.
We just have a couple of minutes left. I hope we can get back to a place where you or somebody from the Farm Bureau is on. pretty
Yep, I
regularly.
think we can here.
Okay. But is there anything else we should know as far as ethanol or anything like that?
That's just an ongoing deal. It's a big subject right now, and hopefully we can get these waivers. I think everyone's seeing the price at the pump, and anything we can do to help that out, I think, is a good thing. So
Yeah, I can't help myself, but note once again, I bought T-bone steak for $15 a pound a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, the price of gas is up 40%. What has happened? Oh yes, we have a new administration, so they're environmentally conscious. But whether the environmentalists like it or not, this is kind of what environmental policy change looks like to people like me, and to people everywhere in the state of Iowa and maybe around the country. This is an economic difficulty that I don't know if we want to. I don't know if it's worth it that we go through it, frankly.
yeah, it's definitely I think affecting everyone in the cost of living, and just go to the grocery store and cost of goods. I mean, it's everywhere. We're seeing it in the ag side. I've seen it in the personal side. So, and I don't know the quick overnight fix to that either.
By the way, congratulations on being a grandpa.
Thank you.
All right, this segment brought to you by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Are you experiencing burning, tenderness, or pain in your knee? Do you avoid going places or doing